Alphabet Inc., aka Google. This company, people literally spoke about it as if it, it was going to be like more important than governments and all this other stuff. Um, they're innovative, sure. Definitely have really good 90s tech. Obviously, they're cutting edge. They do have all the latest technology, but I would make the argument that it's difficult to not be involved in all the latest technology when so much of your day to day is spent just sticking your nose into everything all the time. Google has basically set it up so that if you are getting seed money for any new ideas, for any new innovations, they're going to be kind of alerted to it. There's one thing being aware. There's another thing being alerted. They basically have hit the bell. Which, if you haven't hit the bell for this channel, Sage Seeds Cap very much wants you to hit the bell so that you can be alerted when I'm making new videos, new over explained, and or just fun videos. Let's just dive right into it. It's probably both true that Google is both stronger and weaker in different ways than we all imagine. And they're not sure what their core strengths are anymore. And that's fine because they have so many of them. Let's look at their item 8, just like we would look at any company. Stability, lots of marketable securities as well, which seems to be the prescription for 2022. In true quirky nature, Google is putting 2022 to the right of 2021. Some tick up in accrued expenses, but nothing very concerning, to be honest. It represents about a quarter of cash on hand. Retained earnings. Some of these tech companies are very much encouraged to return capital to shareholders. This is what happened to Apple not so long ago. I made a video about Apple's 2022 report that you could definitely check out if you want more information about that. But Google is not known for being a company that prioritizes returns to shareholders. In fact, with their dual structure common stock, they're known as a little bit anti-investors, if anything. Okay, some healthy increase in margin here. General administrative is only increased by 4 million, while they've been or sorry, 4 billion, while they've been increasing revenue by 100 billion. That is $25 for every one additional dollar spent in general and administrative. That's crazy. What sort of sales is Google making that they require almost no human resources watching the sales? I mean, the customers are essentially just throwing money at them, and Google doesn't even have to hire people to watch. Moving on to the cash flow statement, Google has very low depreciation and amortization for the size of its revenues. None of it is even half. It's not even half of their net income, which again is the bottom of the income statement. This is a company that really doesn't have very much in terms of equipment, or what you would find in textbooks as the classical definitions of capital. Instead, they spend more on stock-based compensation. We do know that there's a certain degree of talent that is necessary in order to keep, let's call it, innovation flowing. Google is organized to get money from investors to employees that are going to create revenue sources that people just essentially want to throw money at. Despite that, though, their purchases of property and equipment are quite high here. I'm actually curious why they're purchasing so much property and equipment, when based on their depreciation values, that has never been a focus for them. Something is actually going on there. Here we go. Google Cloud. Now, they haven't explicitly explained their property and equipment, but they are explicitly mentioning that information technology assets include servers and network equipment. Certainly at this scale for the first time, buying hard servers, hard assets, network equipment, routers, cables, all that stuff, they're purchasing it at a very large rate. And that is new business for them. We depreciate information technology between 4 to 5 years, generally 4 years for servers and 5 years for network equipment. I'm sure Google has looked at other cloud companies and is more than aware of what is generally accepted or not. I personally have kept a laptop for like 7 years, and that was probably too much, but 4 years, 5 years, that would have been fine. Performance fees section is not part of stock-based compensation, but is fees paid out on an ongoing basis. Are not going to justify to investors why this is a cost. Fair enough, they know what they're doing, but remembering that so much of Google's business is keeping top talent. And that's reflected in the income statement, that's reflected in the balance sheet and just the nature of the business. Um, they're holding out on investors. That's straight up refusing to give more information than they deem is necessary. I'd be surprised if, in 50 years, the SEC won't catch up and kind of force companies like Google to to not do this. But for now, at least, I know for a fact that SEC doesn't take any issue with performance fees, and Google would not be doing this if they weren't allowed to. And the fact that investors are willing to, for many companies like Google, let Google use their money with explanations like it may require the use of unobservable inputs. Thanks. All right, let's check out the item one. Many companies get comfortable doing what they have always done, making only incremental changes. This incrementalism, made up ism, which Google does a lot of, by the way, leads to irrelevance over time. Very scary, especially for a very serious annual report where you should be trying to stick to the facts. Many people thought we were crazy when we acquired YouTube and Android and when we launched Chrome, but those efforts have matured into major platforms for digital video and mobile devices and a safer, popular browser. As we said in the original founders letter, we will not shy away from high risk reward. So they're not explaining. Google used to talk about moonshots as the infrastructure to be plugged into changing trends. Now they're not even explaining it. In fact, this leads like a preface to this section with that they have a whole section in their item one called the power of AI. We believe that AI is a foundational and transformational technology. It doesn't sound too transformational if you're already using it, just pointing out. This whole thing reads like a greatest hits type sequence, but the thing is that Google has ballooned into such a portfolio of disconnected businesses. I'm not surprised that their annual report has turned into this game of dropping dropping hints, saying all the people that you're affiliated with, right? Like they're mentioning Lens, they're mentioning Cloud, they're mentioning Translate. They're going to continue to just name drop all over this thing because it's very political at Google. This is how the annual reports have transformed over certainly the last 5 or so years, is that you can see the politics start to seep into the annual report. And frankly, this is reading more like what you would expect the government of France, the government of China, the US government, like governments write press releases like this, and they at least call them press releases. But it is true that Google's annual report has become closer to the political smoke and mirrors of countries rather than to be compared with other tech companies and other companies in general. This is wild. I mean, this is the item one. This is their chance to pitch to investors what it is that they do. Within less than half a page, this whole thing has already just turned into straight up just name drops and opinions. I know that their business is ad revenue and a few other small things, but the economics behind this don't need to be the focus. But what is the focus? You're just naming things you've already done, right? You're just handing out pats on the back here. The parts of the company that didn't get a pat on the back, I am very certain that they're aware. No one's really immune to bureaucracy and politics. Hey, if you're getting more comfortable uncovering the stories behind the numbers, please like and subscribe. Let's do something because I have my opinions, of course. Some people will want to learn from Google because obviously, despite everything I'm saying, Google is a very good company and their annual reports are the annual reports of a very good, successful company. So let's just look at the headers of their business overview. And I'm going to leave you with, before we read them, thinking that notice how broad, non-specific, and I would argue political they are. Every header, in my opinion, is just going to be an opportunity to give out political clout or to name drop certain parts of the business without mentioning anything specific. Let's see if you guys agree. Access and technology for everyone. Fair enough. Very first one doesn't have to be too specific. Moonshots. The power of AI. Privacy and security. Google services, servicing our users. That's almost laughably vague, right? And as you can see, I don't even have to look too far. Look at this. This is a heavy name drop. Like, this section had to be included just because of how many people were going to feel special because their names were mentioned. How we make money. I would like to know. Ads. Yeah, it's just ads. All of this is just ads. Google Cloud. That's the most specific thing we've seen so far. Internal project teams, data warehouses, data governance, data lakes, advanced machine learning, which is certainly a different political entity than just regular machine learning, on cloud, on edge, data centers, Gmail, Docs, Drive, Calendar, Meet. They used this the same way they've used every piece of real estate on this annual report so far in the item one, just to name drop. Let's continue. Other bets. That, that is this is bordering on, if investors still invest with you, that's on them. But what is this other bets thing? Like, that should almost be prohibited, honestly, in my opinion. If the drunk guy down the street could be making other bets, that doesn't mean I want to invest in him. As a company, you shouldn't be uh, encouraging people to to just assume that the things they don't understand are because you're making bets. Competition. Companies that design, manufacture. And it's just kind of funny. There's like there are entire supply chains within hardware. Like, let's just take a piece of hardware. Take a Hamilton Beach kettle in your kitchen, right? There's multiple companies working together, and if you ask every single one of these companies, they know exactly what parts and what processes they're responsible for in making that final kettle product. And that's just a kettle. Here, and they're saying, yeah, we compete with the design, manufacturer, and the marketing. I mean, it's like, fine, I guess. Vertical integration is definitely not a bad thing, but for this to be just one bullet point in their competition thing is kind of hilarious. And several pages not describing anything specific that they do, and then their competition legally, basically anyone that you could imagine. That tells us everything we need to know about Google and what Google is at its core. It's keeping very, very talented people, profiting off of the ideas that those talented people have made in the past, and then just praying that they make another good idea. And to be fair, there's a good chance that there will be other revolutionary ideas. It's a legitimate use case and legitimate business. In between ideas, what is this? This is an insane annual report, and I mean insane in the literal sense. Let's look up the definition of insanity. State of mind which prevents normal perception behavior. This is not normal perception. Providers of connectivity products, guys. Like, let's just take this one section, but really we could do this for any of the bullet points, and there's so many of them. Multiple industries worth of competitors. Like, it's not even limited to one industry. Satellite operators, cable operators, fiber versus optical. We have the people that are connecting across continents. We have people connecting you to your municipality. This would not fly for 90+% of companies. 95+% of companies would not get away if they included a bullet point like this. Like, we're just casually going to compete with all providers of connectivity products. Like, if you said that, you would not hear the end of it from investors. Here, they're saying it about 15 times. Online advertising platforms, that's the whole internet. You're just competing with the whole internet. Now, that doesn't say anything relative to whether they make money or not. They make money. We know they make money. I'm sure Google will continue to find creative ways to convince investors that this is a healthy way and sustainable way to run a business. But it's run more like a carnival, collecting freak shows. No offense to people working at Google, but that's the similar business model to a carnival collecting freak shows. I love carnivals. I will go to a carnival every time it's in town, really, if I can. But I would not necessarily invest in a carnival. because carnivals either are the hottest show in town and people are literally throwing money at them and they don't know what to do with all that success, or most of the time, unfortunately, timing runs out. Very fickle thing to be the quirky product that doesn't exist for any reason other than to be quirky. One thing that is fascinating with Google is that they would see the argument that very much they were the right company at the right time. They had a quirky way of ranking web pages right at the time when ranking web pages was seen as extremely helpful. This was right place at the right time, and so many great companies have been started at the right place at the right time. But they all share something in common, which is that one of the detriments of being the right place at the right time is that the time is constantly changing. Times do change. If you have not replaced your core DNA with something that's going to persist, you got so lucky with your quirkiness in the beginning. Let's go all the way back to the very first sentence, I think it was, of this item one. Our founders, Larry and Sergey, wrote in the original founders letter, Google is not a conventional company. We do not intend to become one. Looking at the first sentence of the moonshots, many companies get comfortable doing what they have always done, making only incremental changes. This incrementalism leads to irrelevance over time. It's one thing to read this at the beginning and to think, wow, no one says things like Alphabet, no one says things like Google. They're quite quirky. It's another thing to read it at the end of this report after seeing the lack of clarity around what it is that they do, after the item 8, things like no capital on a relative basis, high levels of stock-based compensation, and all sorts of ways in order to keep top talent because you really, really have no choice. These things together then make a second read of these sentences kind of a little bit somber. There's quirky, and then there's you were quirky 20 years ago, and now you're trying to hold on to that feeling. It's very easy to overcompensate. And for some of the most important sentences, some of the most highlighted sentences in this annual report to be mentioning irrelevance over time, it feels completely different when put in the context of Alphabet has been in the right time for a long time. We do not expect in general for that to last forever. Well, everyone, that's not what I necessarily thought was going to happen. There was a lot less focus on the numbers here because the numbers were so straightforward for Alphabet. But keep in mind that anything that happens, both good or positive or negative, for a company like Alphabet, which again is literally connected to billions of people around the world, changes are going to be gradual. They might be difficult to stop, be a little bit like trying to park a cruise ship, but they don't happen very quickly. It would be very, very difficult for a company of this size and nature to have a dramatic change happen. And that's nice for investors. Investors like consistency and stability. For the last couple of months, I've been developing a ranking system. And I've so far I put 37 companies into this ranking system for the season of annual reports that we're in, the 2022 season. And this is a valuation ranking system. And so it does take into account, among other things, the current price. And I'm thinking it'd be kind of cool to share, to put these companies into this ranking system and share where they stand as I'm releasing these videos. And it's nothing on this channel is direct investment advice, but it is about gaining some more wisdom. And I think this is a helpful way to kind of compare and rank. Humans think in terms of ranks and all these other things, generally speaking. And so here's me putting one of my own into the world, a valuation ranking, and Alphabet Inc. in this system that I'm developing and will be continuing to add, and this number will continue to tick up as I make new videos. It is ranked 10 out of 37. It did make the top 10, which is very cool. But just barely. And so all the companies that I've made videos for so far for the 2022 season, they are included in this ranking system. But obviously, I haven't posted 37 videos. There are other companies in there. And I'm not really going to say what companies those are just yet. I'm going to continue to post videos like this on Tuesday, and then on Friday, I'm going to post more niche companies, lesser known companies, try to keep that cadence going. Thank you everyone for watching this. Hope you enjoyed, and definitely I'm sure people have opinions about this company in particular. I definitely want to hear them. Now I am of course sharing my opinion as Sage Seeds Cap, and as someone who has been reading annual reports for many years, has read thousands of them. But that is never going to be more than an opinion. And so your opinions, I definitely want to hear as well, from whatever background or wisdom that you're bringing in. I'm doing this to hopefully share my wisdom. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your wisdom.